There's our friends. Feels like our friends show up. We ring the bell and they
I
dollars to the
know.
money, right?
All right. We didn't get to hear much of the music because I'm running late, but we are live on YouTube. So I will officially say hello, everyone, and happy Friday. I hope it's a happy Friday for you. I'm Joel, and I'm joined by my peer and colleague, Mr. Tim Thompson. So say hello, Tim, and wish us a happy Friday.
Hey, good to be with you all today, the fifth day of the week, the first day of the weekend. I love this day for everyone. I can't wait to get some rest this weekend. I'll tell you, it's been on the road, been on the go, and finally settling in, going through all the mail. It's been kind of a crazy week. Joel, tell us who you are wearing today. I feel like this is the red carpet.
It's actually no one in particular. This is just a adorable T-shirt I got somewhere in recent history. I see the world in CinemaScope. So we're 16 by 9 today, not quite CinemaScope, but we're getting there. We're getting close.
We'd have to be anamorphic, but we're going to talk about terms that only us old filmmakers will know what some of these terms are.
I love it when you talk technical. Anamorphic. That sounds freaking fantabulous. Well, today is our open forum. So Tim, we're going to field questions. We're also going to get caught up on questions that we didn't get to as we went throughout this week. We're also going to share more details about Remix, aka the mastermind we're going to be kicking off, I think, in a little over a week. Also, don't let me forget, I want to plug a cohort event that will happen just before that mastermind starts. So we'll get to that later, but I'm excited to get the group back together.
Yeah, get the team back together and our friends at the table with us, as good as a table as we can have. Hey, before we get started, I know we have some folks want us to do another website roast. So I hope you're ready for your roasting gear on. And there's a couple of questions about reiterating some of the 3 or 4 principles you talked about yesterday with websites. But before we get to that, Lydia Scarlett, who you and I know well, we met her in Moldova. She's the outsourceress. And helps many US-based companies and Eastern Europe companies connect with each other. She did a conference recently. She sent me her video. And here's what she talked about, Joel. She talked about the givers and the takers. So specifically what she said was, and she gave an example of a company that she engaged early on, and she thought it was a really great deal, right? There's an ongoing project, a large brand, and she couldn't wait to plug in her resources to that brand work. But what that company was looking for was really just like cheap labor. And although it felt like a really good deal, she was actually really being commoditized. The group was being pushed down. And not only did it lead to commoditization of price or services, they actually looked down on them when it came to services and creativity. And I thought, wow, what an interesting dynamic. When you set yourself up as really only a service-based company, the cheaper solution, you don't just lose the money and lose the position, you also lose like the creative edge. So she told us the takers, and then she talked about our good friend Rob Wagner, your client, and really what he does with her and how he grows those individuals, grows the Eastern European economy in a way, and really plugs people in. And I think Rob has come up with the latest software thing. All that to be set up, I love this idea of givers and takers. And I wanted to get your kind of thoughts on, what does that really mean to us, or how do we act as givers and takers, not only in the situation that Lydia brought up, but, what's the pitfall maybe of being a taker, and what's the gain or opportunity when you're thinking about being a giver?
Well, I mean, my first thought is I think the golden rule has always served creative entrepreneurs well, that before you can reach out and ask for anything or expect opportunity, you have to give something. You have to risk something. And you of course, want to enter into business with people who believe what you believe and do work with people that you can trust and that you can respect, but it has to be a mutual thing. So at the beginning of a relationship, that's usually when you find out how the relationship is going to end. Because if you enter into the relationship as a giver, but it's really that, hey, I'm offering a service and I'm low priced, or I'll do whatever you want, whatever you need. You're coming from a servile order taker positioning, if you will. And that's usually why the relationship ends. So when you fast forward 3 months later and you're finally putting a proposal in front of them and they're saying, no, we don't have nearly this much money. We only have X and we're getting 3 or 4 bids. And that's when you think, dang it, why don't they respect me? It's like, well, you may have set it up that way.
Yeah. I mean, you took orders, right? Like the idea of, hey, what do you want? I'll give you whatever you want, really puts them in the control seat. And you're not leveraging your expertise or your voice or your creative edge. You're leveraging whatever commodity is being pushed out there. What's interesting to me is we use these terms as well. We use this idea of scarcity and abundance. And often what gets us into that relationship with a taker is that we believe there's a scarcity. And so we're willing to give them whatever they want. Just give them whatever they want. Let them be the taker because there's only so much to go around. But if you have an abundance mentality, you realize there's enough out there for everyone. There's actually, there's a possibility even growing. Hey, I can improve the economy. I can create a new trend. I can grow beyond the borders in a way. With that kind of mentality, you're not always willing to give it away and be run over by being a commodity. You're actually kind of looking for leverage and opportunity.
So here's a weird mental exercise I would encourage everyone to think about. Someone yesterday picked up one of my sayings that I've used in the past and was putting it on Instagram. And it's this thing that I've said in Jumpstart and in articles, and that is, charge like you're the best, so you have to be the best. And what's funny is at first you think, oh, Joel, it makes it sound like you're all about the money. And it's not. It's actually that I want you as the creative entrepreneur to say, what is the no apologies investment or price that would enable me to produce the most awesome result for this client, and go out there and ask for it and say, here's what it's worth. And then when that person says, wow, that's pretty expensive. That's a major investment. Here's the money. Guess what happens? Now you have to show up and you grow, you step up to the moment and you learn and you produce something amazing. If on the other hand, you go into that relationship from the other point of view called, let's figure out how we can get the job. What's the lowest, how low can we go? And they'll still say, in order to get the job, what have you, you really set up a dynamic where you become much more dependent on every individual job because there's no margin. There's not a large enough money there to sustain your business. You can't create something really valuable because you're doing it for this low number. And it becomes this perpetuating vicious circle where you're like, why am I not doing great projects? Why am I not happy? Why don't I have margin in my life, not just in my business?
Yeah.
So this is where, I just encourage everyone to think deeply about how do you position yourself so that you can put your expertise out there, you can claim high prices, and people will say, wow, these people look trustworthy and expert. I think they're worth it. And it will create so many benefits in the long run.
I swear, I wish people could be a fly on the wall when we have some of the conversations, because the conversation you and I had yesterday, Joel, where that it's a very well-known company. They're doing super well, and their margins are incredible. And really, when it came down to it, they didn't know any other way but to ask the client for a lot of money. Like in a way, they had a natural ability of saying, hey, I feel like the value of what you're asking for is this much. And then they just did it the way they always did it, which is within small expenses. And nobody is saying, they're compromising the creativity. No, their clients are not walking away because of the prices that they're giving, regardless of their costs. But if you begin the other way, if you begin by adding up all the little bits and pieces, all the day rates and charges, and then 20% margins, and then you try to grow beyond that 10, 15% more, it feels impossible. So you and I have got to discover a mechanism to get people into the right mental state to understand the value proposition.
There's one question here that I think is kind of interesting how it ties into it, because here Nico was saying, in light of the new rules, how can we fix or standardize payments, down payments, getting paid up front and so forth, or net 30. And I will say, in an unexpected way, commanding a premium and having healthy margins actually helps solve this problem called I need the money right now, right? Because this creative firm that you and I were just talking about that will rename nameless, they don't worry whether or not they get paid in 30 or 60 or even 90 because they have such strong cash reserves. They have their own line of credit that they borrow from. So now I know that's not answering the question, because certainly in these times, we need to ask for what we need in order for us to take on a project and bear that burden. But I just want to say a really great strategic byproduct of commanding premium prices is you build up a cash reserve, you have margins so that you don't have to be in such a precarious position when a job or an opportunity comes your way and the client says, oh, but we can't pay you except net 60 or something.
We're bringing up, this is just going to be the beginning conversation, but we're bringing up a lot of questions. How about we just ask one more question about this? Because I want to pivot to a few more open items we have here and then leave open forum for other people to ask us questions as well. Really the question here is, well, I'll just ask the way Richard asked us, then why would you ever say, do you have a budget? Interesting way of just summarizing it, right?
No, I love it. Well, the reason you would ask it is for several reasons, but I will say this. My favorite reason is to tell them why that budget is or is not appropriate, right? So it's not that they're dictating to you, but when somebody says to you, yeah, we have a budget, $20,000, it's an opportunity for you to say, okay, that's interesting because you've told me that this is a top priority for you and that the return on whatever investment you're going to make is potentially 100,000 or 1 million or whatever, or thousands of customers or whatever. So in my view, it sounds like this is an underfunded mandate. And I would recommend you consider a budget of $40,000 or $50,000 to do this, because that's going to guarantee you a better result. And investing only 20,000 in this is almost just throwing away your money. Now, what I did right there was I just used that question of, do you have a budget, and that whole conversation to spur a deeper conversation instead of just saying, oh, well, if that's what you have, okay, fine. But you're the expert. It's like if a brain surgeon said to you, what's your budget? And you said, I have $10,000 to remove this tumor from my brain. He's not going to just say, okay, well, I'm in or I'm out. He's going to say, I recommend spending at least 100,000 if your life is important to you.
Yeah, there really is something like you get what you pay for, and that you have to have that mentality when someone gives you a budget. You go like, well, you get what you pay for. I mean, if you want to spend 10 grand on the brain surgery, you're going to get $10,000 worth of brain surgery. Dan Willis said, interesting. I'm a big fan of leading with a number which represents the value, and then and track record, and then negotiating from there. Great idea, Dan. Getting the idea of on a phone call. Imagine after asking all those questions, and instead of saying, do you have a budget? Say, well, it sounds like what you're asking for feels like about $60,000 or $70,000. Am I within the right price range? If the person says, oh, no way, I have 20 grand. You go, okay, well, tell me more of what you're thinking then, because what you told me so far seems to be something different. And put it out there of like leading with the number. Great idea. I think that's scary for a lot of people because they're afraid they're going to undersell themselves, right? The person had in mind 70,000 and you're asking for 20. Well, you got to know, you got to be ready for that part of the conversation.
Yeah, and this is something, Tim, you and I teach a lot. This is just a principle called anchoring, and it's a pricing psychology technique that really helps the person. It's this idea of whatever number you put out first, the brain anchors to that, and it's the opposite of the conventional wisdom that says he who names a number first in a negotiation loses. It's actually not true. It's the opposite, right? I like what Blair Enns says. He says, people who don't talk about money don't make it. It's this thing where you're essentially in a rush. You're trying to rush to the objections and like, I'm not sure that we're right for you. I'm not sure that we're a fit. I'm not sure that you can afford us. I'm not sure that we're even available, but wow, I would love to figure this out. And now the client, you've turned the tables where they are starting to think, well, gosh, if you're this expert and you create this much value, I want you. So now they're going to start convincing you why you should accept their project. And I love when that happens because now you're in a really healthy negotiation. of what I'm producing for you is incredibly valuable, and then the check that you're going to write me is equally valuable.
I love that. I love that quote. I'm posting it right now because I don't want to forget it.
Which one? The Blair one?
Blair ends. Yeah. It's perfect. Okay, let's pivot here because someone asked earlier, I think it was John. Let me scroll up here.
Oh, yeah. About live action?
Yeah, he said, good news. Where is it, Joel?
That is good news. Yeah, I got it. I won a bid to shoot a live action broadcast spot shooting next week. Woohoo. But then when I started crewing up, calling freelance gaffers and grips, they all asked me, is this legal? Sorry if this question was covered in previous briefings, but how can I determine if it is legal? I'm in New York State.
Can you say that again? Is this legal? Do that one more time in that voice you just did it.
Is this legal? Yeah. Hey, it's my cartoon, my Scooby-Doo voice.
Yeah, right. Legal it is. Hey, John, it's legal. Yes, it is. Just say it. If you want some precedent, clearly if you need to go to work in order to accomplish the job, then you are allowed to go to work and do it. The stay-at-home precedent is a standard that people have. If you are not required to go to work, if you're an employee and your office is not open, you stay at home. Specifically within in our industry, it's called resilience. There's like a resilience standard for the economy and for our industry. And what that means is that in order for the United States to be resilient through a crisis, there are certain things they need. They need telecommunications, they need banking systems, they need the medical system up and running. And we fall in that resilient category because we're providing entertainment, and that's one of the resilient items. So you can just use that of like, yeah, we're part of the resilience pipeline, and feel confident that way. But yeah, it's legal. Just tell people yes, and then go do your live action shoot.
Yeah, that's such a, when that question popped up, I didn't know the answer. So I'm glad you have some insight there, Tim. I'm guessing if you actually tried to find the state agency or something that could give you an answer to that, you would probably be in some sort of a bureaucratic quagmire for days. And obviously getting a shoot together, John's got to book people, spend money right now. So you think he's safe just plowing ahead?
I would say like what you want to do is in the live action shoot, follow the protocols that are asked for you within your state, right? So if they're asking you for certain social distancing or a standard of how many people can congregate in one time, make sure you fit those standards, but obviously go way beyond that. Make sure you're putting in practical items in place, providing people with masks and gloves to keep them safe, allow people to not be there for the entire duration if they don't have to be, have them show up just for the time that are needed and have them move on. So it might take a lot more pre-pro planning, but the ability to assemble, to get the job done, get the job shot and move on, all that's possible. There's nothing illegal about doing a live action shoot during this time.
Tim, do you know, have you come across any resources? I'm thinking of that cool post that Sibling did as one example. There might be a few others out there that John could look at just as sort of like, here's some principles and protocols that we'll be using when we do live action. Also, Richard dropped this question here about liability.
Yeah,
I think it would make sense, obviously, to get in touch with your production insurance and say, hey, here's what we're doing, and make sure that you've crossed those T's and dotted those I's.
Yeah, I'm guessing what Richard means in liability is, what if somebody comes to the shoot contagious and then pass on that contagion? As far as my understanding is no one's liable in passing the contagion on from one person to the other. So no one could sue you and say, hey, Joel had COVID, he gave it to me, I'm going after Joel. That's not a liability standard, and it can never be. Think about what a crush would be on an economic insurance policy or other items. This is part of the normal life process. Disease and bacteria and people getting sick and people dying of natural causes are all part of what's going on. So this doesn't fall within those liability standards of like a lighting kit falling on somebody and causing some injury.
Look at
so
this.
Just be smart, do what you need to. Obviously, the liability you have is a social liability, and that's understanding who the people are you're hiring, what their level of expertise is, and their willingness to be part of it. You can't force somebody to do it, and I definitely wouldn't ask someone to do it, but you are capable of doing it for sure.
I was going to say this thing that Jed shared. What's up, Jed? How you doing? Is awesome. Smugglers got this document, guidance for live action productions relating to COVID-19. So common sense, but it goes into all the departments, right? Production office, motorhome, casting, shooting, director, tech scout. I mean, this is pretty awesome. So hats off to Smuggler for generously sharing that with the industry. That's very cool. And I was going to say something else in I was going to comment on what Justin said here. I love this. Finally, you can tell clients to stay home. I mean, I'm laughing because absolutely. Like, this is not really the time for your client to insist that they want to hang out in Video Village, and there's not going to be a crafts table, services table anyway. So yeah, that would be a leadership call. Like, hey, I can solve this problem for you, but here are the boundaries, and this is outside the boundaries. You can't be there. If that makes sense, I think, for the production, then be the leader and make that call.
I'm going to pivot again because we were about 2/3 through this. Joel, at the end of the conversation yesterday when we were doing websites, that was yesterday, right?
It was.
Okay. There was a question right before we wrapped up, and someone really wanted you to summarize. I think I was joking it was the 3 sins, but I think there might actually be 4. Can you summarize the 3 big takeaways that you kind of covered yesterday when you did people's websites?
All right, so let me grab my giant Post-it note. I'm going to drag it over here. It's a little ungainly, so give me 2 seconds.
Where's your camera person? We probably need the camera person on there.
Exactly.
And then actually, someone posted their website. If you want to use an example too, I have a website for you to follow.
All right, so bear with my giant prop, my giant visual aid.
You can't just find the little ones, huh? You go for the big one.
They make little yellow ones, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are my 7 sins I wrote down yesterday, and obviously this is a work in progress. But over reliance on the word a, we are a fill in the blank studio or whatever. The use of pronouns, okay, like we and us is the whole breaking that first rule of marketing. It's not about you. Okay, no personality, right? Is your positioning and your about us basically factual and informational, trying to convince me rather than just say it and shut up. Buzzwords, right? Don't rely on cliches like storytelling and integrated and that kind of junk. Wallpaper was this concept of just showing your work and expecting me to infer who you are, why you do what you do, how you do what you do. Not good. CTAs, I really hate calls to action, like call me, here's the phone number, submit a form even can be bad depending on how you do it. Because it's presumptuous, right? You're skipping the sales conversation discussion. And also, I don't even know who, if I'm calling a phone number, I don't know who's on the other end of that line. So I'm almost afraid to call it. I don't know who's going to answer that thing. And then lastly, here's services, listing services, having an exhaustive, we do everything from motion design to back rubs to, shaves and haircuts. It's just not helpful. Nobody's really interested in your services. They're interested in the results that you produce. So there are my little 7 sins.
I try to keep up with you. I'll keep on trying to post them as we go along, but I don't type as fast as you talk. So I got to 4 buzzwords. 5. You can type the rest of us as you go on.
Wallpaper, and then CTAs, and then services. So yeah, my 7. I think I called these I'm calling these. Well, as we were getting our act together for Remix, I called these the 7. Hang on, the 7 nondescript sins. Meaning, if you're not standing out, you're being nondescript. This might be why. It might be 1 or more of these. Here it is. Nicely done, Ethan. Look at that.
Thank you, Ethan. You're so much faster typer than I am. I think I can't do it all the time. Do you want to review a website if I sent you one?
I can try. Obviously, we got 5 minutes. So we're going to have to be quick. And we do want to give people a sense of what's coming up. So we'll just need to I'll be timely, but I can give a quick like.
Yeah, do a 30-second. Someone posted this yesterday. Why don't you choose 3 of the worst of these and see how this person did on some of these items.
All right. So this is. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, what I want you to do is give people the ability of what you see so that they can see it when they look at their own website.
Okay, so this is our good friend Rich at Buttons. This is Buttons NY, right? Yes. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Rich, you know I love you. You're a glutton for punishment, my friend. So if I open up this website, I'm going to just do a quick refresh and let everyone see what I see here. Can you see my screen okay, Tim?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so I see Buttons, home about, work, COVID update, contact. I see some sort of a video, people wearing masks. And then as I scroll down, I see a lot of information. Now, at first glance, this is immediately somewhat overwhelming because you're not telling me where to look and what I need to know. Instead, I'm expected to read all this and digest it. And I'm just not going to read all this. I'm going to instead be like, whoa, and then just close the page and think about it later, which means never. So my first thought is, this is just information overload. I like the thought, the sentiment and the intention is nice, but I think it could just be structured a lot better, because there's like a letter here I can see from Rich that is kind of this heartfelt sentiment, which is great. But I'm probably not going to play this video because it feels a little bit like, well, if there's something with people in masks, it feels maybe, I don't know. It feels like it's just too on the nose. Like, oh, we're in the middle of this crisis and here's our video about this crisis. If I'm actually seeking you out, I'm seeking you out for what are the results that you can produce for me. So when I click through and just see things like about, yeah, overall, again, it's so much information. I'm not sure what to look at. That I also see like list of services here, right? This is I'm kind of like, well, if you're experts in sound and audio and music and finishing, that's really all you need to say. Then if I'm a sophisticated buyer, I know what that means. Like I know that means ADR. I know that means 5.1, right? I think also that there's like multiple anthems here, okay? And because I like some of this copy, I like the way that some of this reads, right? That's pushing your vision, right? Of the
well, the idea of push and button is a fun idea. Like the idea of push this percent. It needs to be a more clear picture there.
Yeah. Experts of the push. So there's some really good language there, but there's like 3 or 4 or 5 versions of it. So it's like, can you just be one and done? I wonder.
Yeah. Why don't you go to the homepage?
All right, hang on.
We know what a work section looks like.
Yep. So the homepage was actually the first. Oh, I see.
I'll say that now that you're on work, I would just say real quick, if you're going to do a portfolio, make sure that it's curated and it has a flow to it. You can tell a story within your own portfolio. You don't just have to post it. I don't know what Rich did, but.
Yeah. Now, I actually like some of these quotes. I would just say like this one, excellent, Francis Ford Coppola. That's awesome. Like I know why that's there. I don't know who Ron is at Discover. So it's like, if I don't know that the quote works as much unless it's someone of that stature. And then I think also overall, if I can just be critical, the site feels a little dated. It's just like the design needs to be put in the hands of a killer designer. There's just something overall here in terms of color and typography, layout, that stuff that just doesn't feel premium. And then as I scroll down here, again, it's a lot of copy. I'm having to really work hard to find what is it that you really do. What's the thing that's going to just make me pick up the phone and call you without having to read all this stuff. Yeah. So that's my quick glance.
Thanks. You know what? Going back to that first thing, the COVID update, I like the intention too. I think there's something smart. We've been talking about not being tone deaf, so to take an effort and to try to meet the need. Specifically, what we're talking about, and really what we're going to kind of talk about in the remix mastermind we're going to do, is this thought of like that today's economy needs something else. And we're realizing it's risk and reward. I'm sorry, not preservation and promotion need to come together in order to help people grow. And it's a very different positioning you're going to have as a business than just saying, hey, we recognize there's COVID. We're still in business. We're wearing masks. Let's band together. We know that part of it, but specifically, what is your strategy and your value proposition in this time when a client's going to take a risk on you in what seems to be a risky time. So they want to know that you can understand the risk that they're taking on, but give them security as you take that risk with them. It's going to be a much different nuance to that message.
Yeah, and let me say this too. I think you can convey that in a headline and one sentence, so that when it turns into a phone call, that's where you explain how you are managing risk and all that, right? But trying to put all that on a web page, you're defeating the purpose, which is just make me curious enough to say you're credible, you're expert, you seem trustworthy. Now let's have a phone call. That's all a website needs to do.
Yeah. All right, one last question. Tim, this is from Dan Willis. Tim, what are your thoughts on the digital release of Scoob today, skipping theaters entirely? Is this going to be a trend we see more and more to test 100% digital distribution in Q3 and 4? Let's recognize this. Like, I don't think theaters are ever going to go away. Theaters are evolving, and our live experience space will always draw us to something. There's nothing that beats a movie theater when watching a Marvel movie or some kind of big event. But I do have a feeling what you're catching on to, Dan, is we're definitely going to feel a different trend. I think there's going to be a lower distribution model that we're not used to coming at us, and there's going to be a different offering from these large studios in releasing their films. They can't stay shut in while movie theaters aren't allowed, and they can't force things into just the regular existing digital platforms and turn that into an immediate commodity. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars. We're going to discover a new distribution model. I have a feeling also those of you that are in the film marketing space are going to see some new trends coming out and how you're going to reach an audience and what that means for the trailer space and film space. So absolutely, yeah, Dan, there's something going to be different. I'm not really sure what that's going to be, but I still believe in the blockbuster model and blockbuster economy. So I don't think it's going to go away completely.
So I should share two quick announcements, Tim, before we go, because we're 2 minutes over for everyone here. Here's one, just a quick little plug. If you've been to Cohort before, one of our dinners, we're going to be doing a catch up over cocktails. So if you've attended one before, look for an invitation. You can actually go to the website and register. It's free. It's going to be a cocktail happy hour. We're going to do around the world. So it's going to be Eastern and Pacific and UK and Sydney. The people at Sydney are going to be drinking at 6 a.m. in the morning. So we're gonna try and do it on a Friday. That way it's a weekend thing, not a before work thing.
And we'll have it going for a few hours. So you can drink at 8 a.m. and join us a little bit later if you want to.
Exactly. And then the Monday following, guess what? Here it is. This is what we've been talking about. We're like, okay, let's take everything that we've been talking about and learning and put it all in one place and spend a month in this accelerator we're calling Remix. It's really a mastermind. So if you want to go to revthink.com/accelerators remix, you can check that out. It's got all the content and other stuff that we're going to be covering in that. So that's obviously for everyone here. First and foremost, daily briefings, people. And if you're a member of 7 Ingredients, you'll get a nice discount because we always try to take care of our closest friends and family. So Ethan, if you want to post that, well, you already did. There it went.
And that remix actually is going to be very specific. It's going to live in a certain timeline because we're going to deal with today's economy and today's needs. There are some specific things we want you to know, especially when it comes to marketing and sales, that we know are happening right now. We can see people that are winning in certain categories. We want to share the best practices we see happening with you, but we also want you to build a strong foundation so that it can pivot, because there's going to be 2 or 3 pivots within the next 12 months. And you're going to have to be ready to kind of grab a certain kind of work, recognize a different pivot, a new release, I don't know, something else that's going to happen economically within the United States or around the world, pivot to that and jump into a new category. So it's going to be a different way of managing your business for the next year or two. And we want people to know what it takes to get that done and have the right tools in place to make that happen. Well, Joel, as always, it goes way too fast. And as always, we go over our time limit. I love Open Forum Friday. Please keep sending your questions to us. We will be back on Monday. We've been talking about wrapping this thing up, but we're going to continue all next week and see how this plays out. We appreciate you sticking with us and knowing that you are out there makes all the difference to us at RevThink, because we exist so you can thrive in life, business, and career. We want to make sure that we are here for you. Feel free to reach out to us on 7 Ingredients, email directly, phone calls, whatever you want to. You can even direct message Joel on Instagram. Don't DM me on Instagram. I never check it, but you can DM and send it. You can send a message through Joel to me. He'll send it to me one way or another. But thanks for being with us this week and on Friday. And Joel, have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too. Hey, thanks to Rich at Buttons NY for letting me do the friendly roast, and happy to do more roasts next week. So if you want me to take you down and give you a good roasting, just send me the link. Tim, have a great weekend yourself. We'll see everyone on Monday for our next daily briefing. See you guys.
Bye-bye.